Cash. I always like to encourage people to keep cash. I think it's great. I love to have some cash if I feel that we are switching over from one industry to another or even a market shift. So I like to go into the market with the majority unless we see trends moving from one to another. Then I like cash for opportunities. You can fully fund your employer-sponsored plan like a 401k. I also recommend that you should fund an IRA. You're putting money in there so that way in the future, that account is truly mine.
And I always encourage people to, when they're thinking about that bucket and when that time comes, is to recognize that for many,
just because you're taking from current income to pay for your college child doesn't mean that you don't have money saved up. Hello and welcome to Express Yourself Podcast. I'm your host, Vanessa Martinez.
and I'm Lauren Genuardi.
And today, a question that came in was understanding asset allocation, which is just where do I prioritize putting money away? So this is a really good question, and I think it's a different answer depending on your situation.
Right.
But how do we get started?
Right. I think you have to assess where you are. Number one, that's the most important thing. And I know sometimes that's the hardest thing.
It is.
For people is really looking at kind of what do I have cooking and where is everything at? And am I okay in some areas and maybe not in other areas? And really having an honest look at that. And I think the easiest way for me personally to do that is to kind of consider the different buckets. And in terms of one bucket I think about is cash / emergency savings, rainy day accounts. I know that's what I call them for my clients. Really, what cash on hands do you have for emergencies? And how much should you have and how do you plan for that? And then there's a retirement bucket, right? So that's your 401ks, IRAs, Roth IRAs, all of those kind of accounts. And then there's regular investments that we can think about. So maybe you have a joint brokerage account with your spouse, or you have one just in your name, or you have a trust. Third bucket. Fourth bucket is real estate. And then fifth bucket, if you have children and you're planning to help with college, is really that college planning bucket. So kind of going back to bucket number one, cash. I always like to encourage people to keep cash. I think it's great. I like it in my asset allocation when I'm creating allocations for clients. There's always a place to have kind of a quick money you can get your hands on. So I love that. I like high yield savings accounts. I like planning for kind of those bad days. But I tend to be a little bit more conservative with that. So how do you suggest that people think about the rainy day funds?
I think there's two parts to that. One that you keep really on hand, which is close to you in a high yield savings account that you can control. So you have your checking, your savings, and then maybe if it's for something specific that's short term, right, like a quick vacation or that is what I put in there because it's short term,
right,
in 3 months, in 6 months, right. So you don't want to put that in the market knowing that you're going to need it in a few months, right? But other than that, I am very forward with investing everything else. So I like to go into the market with the majority unless we see trends moving from one to another. Then I like cash for opportunities.
Sure.
I love to have some cash if I feel that we are switching over from one industry to another, or even a market shift of maybe a little heavier in bonds instead of equities, depending on where rates are. That I'd like to keep a little, but it's to take advantage of the market move and purchase some holdings that then I could take advantage of for the clients.
Right. No, that's really smart. And then in terms of retirement, asset allocation, I always like to encourage people to fully fund their retirement account if they're able. And not everyone is able to. So we recognize that, and we kind of have that honest conversation of, hey, I can't put this amount of money in. Great. What can you put in? And we try to push it. So not just, like you said before, beyond the match, go beyond the match. Yes, everyone, common advice, put it in up to the match. It's free money, blah, blah, get your free money. Okay, but long term, that's not going to be enough to really grow to where you need it to be. So you have to really go beyond the match. So I always encourage people to kind of stretch. And even if maybe your match is at 3%, maybe we start at 5. And then the next year we try to go to 7. And then we try to go to 10. And each year we're trying to ratchet that up. What do you think about IRA accounts? How do you like to play those?
I think it's two sides. One, those that can fully fund. So if you can fully fund your employer-sponsored plan, like a 401k, I also recommend that you should fund an IRA outside of that.
Right.
Any way that you could take advantage of either pre-tax dollars or go into the Roth if your income hasn't reached that income limit that you had to contribute to the Roth. I love filling all these buckets that you're talking about.
Right.
I want a little bit of everything, but maximize those that are giving me those additional benefits, right? Like the pre-tax. Okay, great. Not paying taxes now because I'm paying taxes in all the other buckets for everything else. But the Roth, which I really love because I believe that the more we save, the more savvy we are with our investments. That means that my tax bracket, unfortunately, will always be high. So if it's always going to be high, then I just want to pay some of my taxes now. So I want to contribute to the Roth, which is after tax dollars already paid for. You're putting money in there so that way in the future, that account is truly mine,
Right.
or truly whoever I'm inheriting to.
Right.
So I really, really love the Roth IRA as an option to fund as much as I can, as well as the HSA account, a high savings account. Not everybody has access to this account, but if you do, that account, I really think if you can, fund that as much as you can.
Right. And that's a newer one that I feel like sometimes people don't understand, and so they kind of skirt away from it. But that can be a really powerful savings tool. And then going back to the IRAs for a minute, I know the accountants will hate that I'm talking about this, but I do have some like super saver clients, okay, where they've done all the things. They have the SEP or they have a 401k, they fully matched out everything, and they're like, I still want to save more. You can also make a non-deductible contribution to an IRA, and accountants hate this, and I usually have a nasty telephone call and they tell me that that's a stupid idea. But I will tell you, it makes a lot of sense because you're still saving for retirement. Yes, you're not getting that immediate tax benefit, but you're still saving. And if you have the wherewithal in your budget to do it, why wouldn't you?
Yep. Right. I agree. I think that is the most thinking the first part of the question, right? How do I prioritize? It's definitely in these retirement vehicles, whatever they may be, and whatever you're allowed to do because of how much you make, right? Those are the limitations that you have and the maximum amounts that each of them have. That's your only limitation. As long as you earn enough to fund these as much as possible, I agree with you. Let's fund it. Of course, we're not accountants, but you need to reach out to them to ask them that question on, in an IRA, it's supposed to be pre-tax dollars, but you can put post-tax dollars into it because let's say you can't fund the Roth, but you still want to keep putting money into it. But you do need to keep track of that for the accountant because the IRS does not keep track of that for you. So you have to do it for yourself with your accountant as support, of course. But those are important vehicles.
Right. And then the next bucket I think of is, this is like gravy, the regular investment accounts. So hopefully you fully fund the retirement, right? Because those are long-term.
Right.
You have the most, you start those early, you save continuously, they grow, you have the most amount of years. And then the gravy comes in where, hey, we have excess money. We're covering our budget. We did the retirement stuff. Now we do regular investment accounts. So how do you encourage people to get started with those?
It's definitely that additional money. So after you've built out their financial plan, that you know their goals, so now you know how much they need to save in an investment vehicle. So you're setting up those automatic transfers into this.
Right.
Be it monthly, every time you receive your bonus, it could be an additional amount. We leverage all the opportunities of excess cash into these accounts. But even these accounts, I know we've given you a lot of buckets to think about, but even in the investment side of it, you can divide it in buckets. One that's for sure something that you want to inherit to the children, and another one that is more thinking, okay, when we retire,
Right.
I actually want to live in X and Y state or country. So that means I want another property. So maybe I want to be a snowbird and go back and forth. And we say snowbird because we're in Chicago and there's lots of snow. But yes, we can go back and forth.
Right.
So I think setting up those accounts that way is savvy as well. It feels very long and drawn out when you think of it originally, but believe me, the more automated it becomes, the easier it is for you, and you will see the results. You will see the compounding results of being invested and, you know, what everybody says, having your money work for you.
Right.
This is the way that it happens. And I think after a couple years, you're in.
Right.
You're like, this totally makes sense.
Right.
Why didn't I start sooner?
Right. And then this lovely segue into bucket number 4, which is real estate. So I think you can consider this too. I know there's people out there that really push, pay down all your debt, get everything debt free. And that's one way to look at it, right? Like you have a home that you live in. If you're able to afford that home and buy your home, great. If you're renting, maybe with additional cash flow, you're able to buy and enter into kind of property ownership. Or to your point, if you work on a snowbird, right? Maybe this is a long-term plan. Hey, I have this house. I'm paying on this house. We're good. We're on track to pay this off on time. Or maybe we even pay this off early, but now we want this other property. And how do we go about saving for that? And how do we plan for it, right? Because that's not something you want to come up with overnight and be like, I'm going to buy another house in Florida. No, guys, that's how you create a lot of chaos. It's much better if you have a longer term plan and we can have years to save up for that versus all of a sudden crash course and trying to move money and buy another property.
And there's two parts to that, right? There's the individual investment piece where it's your residential property and your second home.
Right.
And there are some people who really like real estate as truly just investment purpose.
Right. And they're usually very successful at it. So if that's a skill set you have, fantastic. I mean, I've seen many people that buy those investment properties and their main home is paid off in a couple years because of the income from the investment property. It's kind of amazing.
But that being said, I love how you said you started it with the skill set.
Yes, you have to be good at it. Not everyone is.
Right. So it's just like entrepreneurship. It's a wonderful thing, but it's not for everyone.
Right.
And it's the same with properties. Does it work? Can it work? Yes, it can. But you have to know that it is an additional job.
Right.
It's not just you buy it and then that's fine, it'll deal with itself.
No.
Or because let's say you have the renters there, be it residential or commercial space that you purchased, and it does pay for itself. Yes, but somebody has to maintain the maintenance. And having a property manager is wonderful, right? It is so helpful. They cover a lot of pieces, but not all of them.
Right.
So there's still a lot of knowledge you need around not just what piece to buy, but all the responsibilities that come with it, even just tax planning around it. So I would say it's bucket number 4, not just for your residential, but it could be for additional pieces, but make sure that you are talking, if you don't have that skill set,
Right.
make sure you're talking to someone who does
Right. It can help you.
and can help you
Advice.
Yes.
Right. Right.
do that.
Right. And then bucket number 5 is college planning. How do you like to think about that?
I don't. I don't like to think about it because that means my kids are just getting older, but I'm there now.
Right.
So my senior this year is going to college. And that is I think there's two pieces to it. There's the planning for it financially and the planning for it emotionally. That's such a burden as well. I'm super excited and happy and overly emotional on you get sad.
Right.
Um,
It's a transition
Yes.
for everyone, for them too.
and that might seem like, okay, that's a separate part. It's emotional. But let me tell you how it plays into your finances. Because you are emotional, now it's, do I want to go visit them? How often, Minuk?
Right. Right.
Do I want to go again? Do I want to bring them in on the weekends? Do I want to?
Right.
So
Right.
you do need to plan those pieces. If you do consider yourself overly involved and you're like, I want to be there all the time, well, then you have to plan for that. If you're going to bring them in all the time, then you have to plan for that.
Right.
So regardless of what it is, it still comes down to the drain it can have if not planned for to your finances. Planning in advance to be able to have some funds for college is great. So that way you avoid different loans that you have to take. But there's always, we've talked about this before, the two parts of what am I wanting to do for you,
Right.
not as a responsibility per se, but as a gift to you. And what is your responsibility as the individual receiving this education?
Right.
So it's two parts there.
Right. Absolutely. And I always encourage people to, when they're thinking about that bucket and when that time comes, is to recognize that for many, it's very hard to pay that upfront with one fell swoop, just write one check. I know very few people that are actually able to do that. Most people do need to save over time. They're also potentially taking from current income
Yes.
to pay for it, or even from future income because they are drawing loans too. So I think really kind of balancing and understanding how it's going to work for your family is important.
Yeah. I think that piece of saying from current income makes a lot of sense in two parts. Just because you're taking from current income to pay for your college child doesn't mean that you don't have money saved up.
Right.
So that could mean that your investment accounts are making money and your current income, this is when you pause those pieces. If you had set up those automatic transfers to go into your investment account,
Right.
because you have excess income,
Right.
now you can pause those for some time because you're doing college, but then you're not having to sell good holdings, whatever you might have if you have liquid investments in stocks and bonds, or if you have some type of alternative vehicles that you're invested in, you don't have to touch those. Those can continue to grow for you as you're using your current income to help your child with college. Right. So there's multiple ways that you can go about it. It's not just the thought of, oh no, I don't have a 529 account for my child. There's many, many ways that you can support your children in paying for college.
Right. And it's really important at those points to reach out to your advisor because we can help you strategize. What do we turn on and turn off and pause at this moment to make these kind of things happen? So that's why it's really important to circle back to us.
Yes, definitely yes. But that was a lot.
That was.
So asset allocation does have many components to it. We love the questions, so keep them coming and reach out if you need some help. Thank you.